Why did Cary Grant, one of Hollywood's most magnetic stars, refuse to attend Audrey Hepburn's funeral? On the surface, it seems almost impossible to understand. After all, the two shared one of the most iconic on-screen partnerships in cinematic history. Charade, released in 1963, showcased a spark between them that audiences couldn't ignore. A blend of charm, wit, and undeniable chemistry. But their connection went far beyond the silver screen. Behind the scenes, Cary and Audrey developed a rare friendship, one built on mutual respect, affection, and an unspoken understanding that not many outside Hollywood could fully grasp. Cary Grant was not just a star. He was an enigma known for his debonair style and effortless charm. He carried an aura of mystery that extended into his private life. Few really knew him, and even fewer had access to the depths of his emotions. Audrey, on the other hand, was known for her grace, warmth, and humanitarian work, especially with UNICEF. Together, they formed a bond that was both genuine and complex, a friendship that balanced lighthearted moments with a deep emotional understanding. So when Audrey passed away on January 20th, 1993, the world expected grief to be public, to be shared with the countless fans and Hollywood friends who adored them. And yet, Cary Grant did something that shocked many. He stayed away from the funeral entirely. On the surface, it seemed cold, even unthinkable. But the story behind his absence reveals a man who felt deeply, loved quietly, and grieved in a way that was entirely his own. Cary Grant and Audrey Hepburn's friendship was anything but ordinary. It began on the set of Charade in 1963, when the cameras weren't rolling and the scripted dialogue faded into private moments of laughter and connection. Despite a 26-year age difference, they immediately found a rhythm that went beyond co-stars. They shared jokes, late-night conversations, and small gestures of kindness that hinted at a deep understanding between them. Friends and colleagues often remarked on the ease with which they interacted, an unspoken chemistry that wasn't about romance, but something quieter, more profound. What made their bond unique was its foundation in mutual respect. Audrey, though revered as a Hollywood icon, trusted few people completely, but she trusted Cary. He, in turn, valued her intelligence, her warmth, and her uncanny ability to remain grounded amid the pressures of fame. They supported each other during difficult times, celebrated each other's successes, and shared a private world that the public never saw. Their friendship thrived in moments off-screen, quiet dinners, whispered advice, or simple companionship. It was a relationship defined not by headlines or paparazzi photos, but by authentic human connection. Even years after Charade, they maintained their closeness. While Hollywood relationships often faded once the cameras stopped rolling, theirs endured quietly but persistently. Letters, occasional visits, and private phone calls kept the bond alive. To those who knew them, it was clear their friendship was rare, treasured, and unshakable. The Hollywood of the 1960s was a world of carefully constructed images and publicist-approved narratives. In this landscape of manufactured stories, Cary and Audrey's friendship stood out as refreshingly genuine. They found in each other kindred spirits who understood the weight of fame, the pressure of perfection, and the exhaustion that came with constant public scrutiny. While their public personas dazzled millions, in private they could simply be themselves. No pretense, no performance required. Those who worked with them on the set of Charade witnessed moments that revealed the depth of their connection. Director Stanley Donen once recalled finding them sharing a quiet lunch break, heads bent together in conversation that immediately ceased when others approached. It wasn't secrecy, but privacy they sought, a rare commodity in Hollywood. The film's crew noted how Cary, already an established legend, would often seek Audrey's opinion on scenes, valuing her artistic instincts and perspective. She, in turn, looked to him for guidance, absorbing his decades of industry wisdom with genuine interest and respect. Their friendship was also marked by thoughtful gestures that spoke volumes about their mutual care. When Audrey expressed anxiety about certain scenes, Cary quietly arranged for the shooting schedule to be adjusted, giving her more time to prepare without ever mentioning his intervention. And when Cary experienced one of his periodic bouts of insecurity, something few knew about the seemingly confident star, Audrey would leave encouraging notes in his dressing room, small reminders of his talent and worth that he kept for years afterward. The success of Charade only deepened their connection. As they traveled together promoting the film, they developed routines and inside jokes that created a private world amid the chaos of press junkets and premieres. Audrey's son Sean later recalled how his mother would light up when receiving calls from Uncle Cary, conversations filled with laughter and shared memories that could stretch for hours. These weren't the superficial exchanges of Hollywood acquaintances, but meaningful dialogues between two people who genuinely understood and appreciated each other. And yet the depth of their friendship remained largely hidden from public view. Neither Cary nor Audrey was inclined to discuss their personal relationships with the press, preferring to maintain clear boundaries between their public and private lives. This shared value of privacy further cemented their bond, creating a sanctuary of trust in an industry where personal stories were often commodified for publicity. Cary Grant was the epitome of Hollywood charm. Polished, witty, and seemingly effortless on screen, but off camera, he was a man of profound privacy. While fans marveled at his dazzling persona, very few truly understood the life he led behind the glimmering lights of Tinseltown. Grant carefully curated his public image, revealing just enough to maintain intrigue while keeping his deepest emotions hidden. Interviews were rare, personal details even rarer. He moved through Hollywood like a carefully constructed enigma, leaving little room for outsiders to glimpse the man behind the smile. This private nature wasn't just a choice, it was a part of who he was. Cary had experienced tumultuous relationships, personal loss, and the pressures of an industry that demanded constant exposure. He had been married 5 times, but even within those relationships, he often struggled to fully express his inner life. Close friends later revealed that he felt emotions intensely, but preferred to process them in solitude away from the public eye. Displays of grief or vulnerability were deeply personal, rarely shared outside a trusted circle. This careful guard over his life carried over to his friendships. While he could charm the world on screen, the people he allowed into his inner circle, Audrey Hepburn being a notable exception, were treated with a rare intimacy. He valued discretion, loyalty, and emotional honesty from those he trusted. Yet he remained fiercely protective of his own feelings. This complexity, this duality of charisma and reticence, explains much about his choices in later years, including the way he faced Audrey's passing. Beneath Cary's polished exterior lay a man shaped by early hardship and reinvention. Born Archibald Leach in Bristol, England, he had transformed himself completely, crafting the persona of Cary Grant with painstaking care. This self-creation left him with a lingering insecurity, a fear that if he revealed too much of himself, the illusion might shatter. Friends who knew him well understood that his privacy was not merely preference, but protection, a shield for the vulnerable soul behind the perfect facade. His relationship with the press was particularly revealing of this guardedness. Unlike many stars who courted publicity, Cary approached interviews with cautious precision, offering charming anecdotes that revealed little of substance. Journalists who attempted to probe deeper were met with deflection or that famous Grant smile that somehow ended questioning without appearing rude. He understood the machinery of fame better than most and navigated it with deliberate care, maintaining control over his narrative with impressive discipline. Those few who did penetrate this carefully maintained boundary discovered a man of surprising depth and complexity. Cary was well-read, thoughtful, and possessed an introspective nature that contrasted with his light-hearted screen persona. He struggled with periods of depression throughout his life, battling inner demons that the public never glimpsed. These private struggles made authentic connections all the more valuable to him and explained why he cherished relationships like the one he shared with Audrey, relationships based on understanding rather than image. His home reflected this desire for a sanctuary away from public scrutiny. Tastefully appointed but never ostentatious, it was a space where he could fully relax, free from the expectation to be Cary Grant. Visitors were few and carefully selected, each invitation representing a significant level of trust. Those who received such invitations described a different man than the one the world knew. More contemplative, sometimes melancholy, but also capable of warmth and genuine connection when he felt safe to express it. This context makes his relationship with Audrey all the more significant, that he allowed her into this private world, that he shared with her parts of himself hidden from public view, speaks volumes about the trust and affection between them. Their friendship offered Cary something increasingly rare in his life: authenticity without expectation, connection without performance. Audrey Hepburn, beloved for her elegance, grace, and humanitarian work, passed away on January 20th, 1993, at the age of 63. Her death marked the end of an era not just in Hollywood, but in the hearts of millions who admired her on-screen performances and her tireless dedication to causes like UNICEF. Audrey's life had been full of contrasts, from her early years marked by war and hardship in Europe to the dazzling heights of Hollywood stardom. She carried herself with a quiet strength and authenticity that left a lasting impression. Her passing was a shock to the world. Audrey had battled appendiceal cancer, a struggle that she faced with remarkable courage and dignity. While the illness remained private, those close to her were painfully aware of her declining health. When the news of her death broke, tributes poured in from around the globe. The public mourned not only an icon, but a woman who embodied compassion and timeless elegance. Audrey's funeral brought together a select circle of family and friends, reflecting the life she had lived both publicly and privately. Her sons, her partner Robert Wolders, ex-husbands Andrea Dotti and Mel Ferrer, and close friends including fashion designer Hubert de Givenchy, were all present. UNICEF executives and fellow actors, including Alain Delon and Roger Moore, also attended, highlighting the impact she had across multiple spheres. It was a gathering of admiration, love, and sorrow, a testament to the extraordinary life she had led. Yet among all these mourners, one name was notably absent: Cary Grant. The final months of Audrey's life revealed the same grace and dignity that had characterized her entire career. Diagnosed with a rare form of cancer that offered little hope for recovery, she approached her illness with remarkable serenity and courage. Those close to her during this time spoke of her concern not for herself, but for the loved ones she would leave behind. Even as her strength waned, her compassion remained undiminished, a final testament to the extraordinary woman she had always been. Her work with UNICEF had become the central passion of her later years, and even as her health deteriorated, her thoughts often turned to the children she had fought to help. In private conversations, she expressed hope that her legacy would extend beyond her films to encompass this humanitarian work that had given her life such profound meaning. This selflessness in the face of mortality touched all who witnessed it, adding another dimension to the world's grief when she finally succumbed to her illness. The news of her passing traveled quickly through Hollywood's tight-knit community. For many who had known her personally, including Cary, it was not just the loss of an icon, but of a friend whose warmth and authenticity had enriched their lives. Each person who had been touched by Audrey processed this loss in their own way, through their own lens of memories and shared experiences. For some, public expressions of grief came naturally. For others, like Cary, mourning required privacy and personal reflection. Her funeral was arranged with the same understated elegance that had defined her life. Held in Switzerland, where she had made her home in later years, it struck a careful balance between acknowledging her public significance and honoring her private nature. The ceremony itself was intimate, restricted to those who had truly known and loved her, rather than the industry acquaintances who often populate celebrity funerals. This selectivity reflected Audrey's own values: her preference for meaningful connections over superficial fame, for quality over quantity in her relationships. For those in attendance, the service provided an opportunity for collective healing, for shared remembrance of a woman who had touched so many lives. Stories were exchanged, tears shed, memories honored in a communal expression of loss and love. Yet for Cary Grant, whose relationship with grief had always been intensely private, the path to acceptance would take a different form, one consistent with the man he had always been. Cary Grant's absence from Audrey Hepburn's funeral surprised many, even those who knew his deeply private nature. In a world accustomed to public displays of grief among Hollywood's elite, his decision not to attend stood out sharply. To some, it may have seemed like a cold or detached choice, but the truth was far more complex. Cary Grant grieved in his own way, consistent with a lifetime of handling emotion behind closed doors. He did not need to be seen to feel deeply. In fact, being part of a public ceremony may have been unbearable for someone who valued privacy above all else. Throughout his life, Cary had carefully maintained a boundary between his public persona and his inner world. He avoided the tabloids, shunned unnecessary interviews, and rarely allowed the press to glimpse his personal relationships. This tendency extended even to his friendships, where he cherished intimacy but resisted public attention. Attending Audrey's funeral, surrounded by cameras, reporters, and well-wishers, may have felt like an intrusion into a private bond that was sacred to him. Those who knew Cary speculated that attending the funeral would have forced him into a performative role, one he could not reconcile with the genuine grief he felt. By staying away, he maintained the integrity of his emotions, experiencing them fully and authentically in solitude. It was an absence that spoke volumes. It wasn't a lack of love or respect, but a deeply personal tribute in the way only Cary Grant could give. Even in his absence, his connection to Audrey was undeniable, setting the stage for the profound emotional response that would follow. For Cary, the decision to stay away from the funeral was complicated by practical considerations as well. At his age, he was in his late 80s at the time of Audrey's passing, travel had become increasingly difficult. The journey to Switzerland where the service was held would have been physically taxing, particularly given his declining health. Yet those who knew him understood that physical limitations alone would not have kept him away if he had felt capable of facing such a public moment of grief. More significant was his lifelong discomfort with funerals and public mourning. Throughout his career, Cary had consistently avoided such events whenever possible, preferring to honor lost friends and colleagues in more private ways. This wasn't callousness, but a deeply personal approach to loss, one shaped by early experiences that had taught him to guard his vulnerability carefully. For someone who had spent decades maintaining precise control over his public image, the raw emotion of grief was particularly challenging to navigate in a public setting. The media speculation that followed his absence reflected a fundamental misunderstanding of who Cary Grant truly was. Tabloids questioned whether there had been a rift between the two stars, whether some unknown disagreement had soured their friendship in its final years. Such speculation couldn't have been further from the truth. Those who knew them both understood that their connection remained strong until the end, expressed through private conversations, thoughtful correspondence, and the kind of quiet support that defined their entire relationship. What the public couldn't see was the personal ritual of mourning that Cary created for himself, one aligned with his nature and his relationship with Audrey. Privacy wasn't absence of feeling, but rather the space in which genuine emotion could exist without performance or pretense. His tribute to his friend would come not through public gestures, but through the authentic experience of loss, honored in the quiet dignity that both he and Audrey had always valued. Though Cary Grant did not attend Audrey Hepburn's funeral in person, his emotions were far from absent. Reports from those who observed the televised service revealed that he wept quietly, immersed in grief from the privacy of his own space. It was a poignant reminder that emotion doesn't need a public stage to be genuine. For Cary, grief was intensely personal, and his tears were a private acknowledgement of a friendship that had deeply shaped his life. This reaction highlighted the profound depth of their bond. On screen, Cary and Audrey's interactions sparkled with charm and humor, but off-screen their relationship was quietly significant. He had witnessed her growth, her struggles, and her triumphs, and he had supported her in ways few could see. When she passed, he experienced a sorrow that could not be performed for cameras or the public. It was raw, honest, and entirely his own. Cary's choice to grieve privately was also in keeping with the man he had been throughout his life. He had often navigated loss and emotional challenges behind closed doors, processing feelings away from prying eyes. The tears he shed during the televised service were a rare glimpse into his inner world, revealing the emotional honesty he reserved for those he truly cared about. In the days following the funeral, Cary's grief found expression in small, meaningful gestures that honored their friendship without public display. He sent a handwritten letter to Audrey's sons, expressing condolences that were deeply personal rather than formal. The contents of this letter remained private, another boundary respected by those who understood his nature. But those who received it spoke of its emotional depth and sincerity. This personal outreach, rather than public statements, reflected his authentic approach to connection and loss. He also made a substantial anonymous donation to UNICEF in Audrey's memory, supporting the cause that had been closest to her heart in her final years. The anonymity was characteristic of Cary's approach to philanthropy throughout his life, giving generously but without seeking recognition or praise. This quiet tribute honored not just Audrey's memory, but the values she had embodied, extending her legacy in a way she would have appreciated far more than public displays of grief. For weeks after her passing, Cary immersed himself in memories of their friendship, revisiting letters she had sent him over the years and watching their film together in the solitude of his home. Friends who spoke with him during this period noted his reflective mood, his desire to talk about Audrey and the impact she had made on his life. These private conversations revealed the depth of his feeling, the genuine sense of loss that no public appearance could have adequately expressed. Perhaps most telling was his decision to place a single-frame photograph of Audrey in his study, a space reserved for his most treasured memories and relationships. The photo wasn't from their film or any public appearance, but a casual moment, captured during a private dinner they had shared years earlier. It showed Audrey laughing, entirely herself, embodying the authentic spirit that had formed the foundation of their friendship. This quiet memorial, seen only by those few visitors he welcomed into his home, spoke volumes about what she had meant to him. Ultimately, Cary Grant's response to Audrey Hepburn's death underscored the quiet intensity of their friendship. Though he was absent from the funeral, his grief spoke volumes, a testament to a connection that defied public spectacle and celebrated the depth of genuine human emotion. Cary Grant's decision not to attend Audrey Hepburn's funeral was not a reflection of indifference, but a testament to his deeply private nature and the unique bond they shared. Their friendship was forged in quiet moments, off-screen laughter, and mutual respect, far from the glare of Hollywood's cameras. To those who only saw the absence, it may have seemed puzzling, even shocking. Yet when viewed through the lens of Cary's life and personality, it becomes clear that this was his way of honoring Audrey authentically, privately, and profoundly. The story of their connection reminds us that grief does not always follow expected patterns. Some mourn openly, while others process their emotions in solitude, away from public view. Cary Grant, with his carefully guarded personal life, chose the latter. He allowed himself to feel the full weight of Audrey's passing in a space that felt safe and sincere. In doing so, he preserved the integrity of his emotions and the sanctity of their friendship, revealing a depth that few could truly appreciate. Their relationship, unbound by romance but rich with loyalty and admiration, serves as a reminder. The true bonds often exist quietly, unseen, yet profoundly felt. While the world witnessed the funeral and the many tributes to Audrey, Cary's personal tribute remained private, a silent testament to love and respect expressed without fanfare. It's a story that underscores the complexity of human connection and the ways in which some relationships are honored most fully in the stillness of the heart. The legacy of Cary and Audrey's friendship extends beyond their time together, offering insight into the nature of authentic connection in a world often preoccupied with appearance. They found in each other something rare in Hollywood: genuine understanding without agenda or expectation. Their story challenges our assumptions about how grief should look, reminding us that the depth of feeling cannot be measured by public display. Some of the most profound connections leave their mark not in grand gestures, but in the quiet spaces of the soul, in memories treasured privately, in tears shed beyond the public gaze. Perhaps that is the true beauty of their friendship, that it existed for its own sake rather than for the world's consumption. In an industry built on image and illusion, they created something real, something that belonged to them alone. And in the end, Cary honored that reality in the most fitting way he knew, not through public performance, but through private truth. His absence at her funeral, far from diminishing their bond, ultimately affirmed its authentic nature and enduring significance. In a culture increasingly focused on public expressions of emotion, where grief is often shared across social media platforms and judged by its visibility, the story of Cary Grant and Audrey Hepburn offers a valuable counterpoint. It reminds us that there is no single right way to mourn, no universal expression of loss that applies to all. True emotion respects no templates or timelines. It unfolds according to the unique contours of each heart, each relationship, each life lived and remembered. And so, while Cary Grant may have been physically absent from Audrey Hepburn's funeral, his presence in her life, and hers in his, remains undimmed by time or distance or even death itself. Their connection, honored in his own quiet way, stands as a testament to friendship in its purest form, authentic, enduring, and profoundly personal.